Now, this is always a hot topic, getting rid of invasives and how you should get rid of invasives and what are invasives. There's a lot of things I've even seen, like I'll talk about switchgrass and people say, hey, is that native? I don't want it to spread. Is it an invasive? And people are so keyed up on some of this stuff that they almost mislabel everything. Even miscanthus grass, it's non-native, but it doesn't spread. But people are concerned because it doesn't spread, even though it's a non-native. They just look at it like it's bad. And so I think there's a really need for kind of looking at the big picture with all of this. I just want to point out some stuff, and I'm not saying not to attack your non-natives and invasives. And what's the difference between a non-native and invasive? Everything that's a non-native displaces natives. And I'll point out number one right here, an apple tree. Did you know that other than crabapple trees, any apple tree that's out there, other than varieties that were grafted and grown here, but bottom line is all those apple tree roots go back to Asia, 1700s. They were brought here. They are a non-native to North America. I've looked at any of these. You can look up apple trees, ringneck pheasant, brown trout, Norway spruce. I'm not telling you to get rid of these. I'm trying to offer a little bit of big picture perspective to this entire situation. And if you look at apple trees, awesome. But they're brought here in the 1700s through Asia. And a lot of these things were. But if you just look up, just Google this stuff. Just type in, are apple trees native to North America? See what comes up and read about it. Did you know the ringneck pheasant was brought here between the 1730s and 1880s? It was first attempted in the 1730s. And I think it was really solidified in the 1880s, but that's from China and Japan. How many of you hunters out there that love going pheasant hunting, but can't stand Chinese imports? Well, maybe that's why you shoot pheasants. I don't know, but they're originally from China. Ringneck pheasants. Brown trout, 1800s, Europe, Japan, Asia. Norway spruce. Where do you think Norway spruce come from? But 1800s, they're from Europe. All of these are non-natives. To me, there's a lot of hypocrisy. Why are these accepted? They all displace other species. Brown trout displace other species of fish or trout. Norway spruce, other trees. You ever seen a Norway spruce, how it just keeps spreading out into a field and it keeps growing? And so downwind of it, those seeds go and it just keeps filling in a field. It's displacing everything else that's out there. Ringneck pheasants, you think they don't displace any other birds in the area? Apple trees, if you have a giant apple tree growing, it shades out everything that was native underneath. The point is, I'm not, again, trying to tell you to get rid of these, but there's a lot of hypocrisy where you're attacking natives, or people are attacking natives over here, but this group is okay. Mention concrete, houses. Boy, those displace a lot of habitat. I'm not saying not to have a house or concrete driveways or asphalt driveways either. The point is that they're there for decades, if not more. They displace everything that would have been there, including wildlife, habitat, but that's acceptable, like an apple tree. Who gets to pick and choose this stuff? Someone says we should get rid of this or that because it displaces. I had a really good comment that I mention often. I wish that person would comment again on one of these, but he worked with invasives and funneling money to the feds and at the state level for his career. Millions and millions of dollars to remove invasives. And he said it was largely a huge waste of time because in big settings, millions of dollars were funneled there, and surprise, surprise, the government just wasted it because unless they were going to do it everywhere, which would have cost billions and billions of dollars, if not trillions, then those invasives always came back. So he said that if you're doing this in a small parcel rehab, let's say you have 5 acres, you want to control and make sure that no invasives are in this 4-acre woods outside your house, pretty easy to do so. You can attack it, make it your life's mission, go out there and spend a lot of time, maybe a couple weeks worth of work every single year if you have that kind of time. Take care of it, but always know that the second you leave, those invasives are going to start coming back, and that person that buys your home after you or owns that property after you might not have that same outlook. And I'm not saying that's a reason not to do or not to attack. I just want you to understand the big picture. And I'll give you an example of autumn olive. Now, autumn olive, I'm not suggesting that you go out and plant it. I had an article I wrote for 4 bedding habitats, because what I recognized about 20 years ago was that you had the 4 bedding habitats of shrubs, hardwood regen, conifers, and then briars, weed growth. If you put those 4 categories, if you get those 4 things to happen in any area, like an upland setting, those are the best bedding and wildlife locations. I talked about autumn olive in there, and the organization was a QDMA at the time. I was writing for Quality Whitetails. Editor came back and said, oh, we can't talk about an invasive like autumn olive. We can't talk about how to use it. And I thought, how short-sighted. I published an article anyways, and, big deal. But the whole point is, I go to properties, and I've been to many properties in Michigan, where if they didn't have autumn olive, they wouldn't have wildlife cover, because there are too many deer. They ate everything else. And the autumn olive is somewhat deer-proof, great for nesting birds, escape cover for grouse. Grouse love the berries too. Escape cover for rabbits. And oh, by the way, it's escape cover for whitetails. The point is, if you're going in to replace some of these, I had a good question today. Someone said, under my big, huge hardwoods, I have 10 to 12 foot high honeysuckle, and it's taken over the forest floor. What do I do about it? How do I create bedding in there? Well, for one, they probably have a little bit of bedding. I went to a property last year, and they had an invasive honeysuckle removal program, and they removed it all. So they took a woods, had these giant hardwoods that they had yet to cut. They went in there with a forestry mulcher, mulched all the honeysuckle down, and then sprayed it to get rid of it under a state of Wisconsin plan. And then all the deer left, and all the critters and all the wildlife had no place to go in that woods. To me, that's very bad. Again, big picture, get rid of the honeysuckle if you want. But use the honeysuckle as a base coverage. Use the autumn olive as a base coverage, which is what I tried to talk about in that article 20 years ago. And remove pockets, kill it, spray it, whatever you want to do. Allow the other remaining pockets to surround that area. Allow that to provide your cover, your screening. And now you can have the best of all worlds. Same with red cedar. Now, red cedar is native to North America, but red cedar eradication programs are prevalent in, say, a state of Missouri. So take 40 acres of red cedar, just mow it all down. Now all the wildlife that related to that, deer, rabbits, pheasants, whatever it might be, they're gone. Chipmunks, they have no place to live. You just killed them, or you displaced them. And a lot of times those small game critters, they don't have anywhere to go. And so you really kill them. Instead, go in and take out 50% of it in pockets. Diversify it. Make sure no red cedar comes into that, because it's a monoculture. When you cut it all out, it's still a monoculture. Other stuff might come in eventually, but it takes years, sometimes a decade or more, 20 years or more, for it to come in to actually be an appreciable level of growth of diversity within that area to attract a good wildlife population. Instead, use the red cedar, use the autumn olive, use the honeysuckle as your base forms of cover. Take out 50% in pockets, let that grow up. When that's grown up and established, and you actually have a replacement, don't think you're going to have a replacement in 5 years and let the critters starve and die. Take out those pockets, let the pockets grow. When you have enough cover in that location of diversity with other species, other varieties, other plants that you put in there, now take the rest down. That's a successful eradication program, not just going in and removing all of them and removing and displacing the wildlife. There's smarter ways to do this. And oh, by the way, always look back. And this is what that person told me that said he wasted taxpayer dollars for decades on these programs. What he talked about was that yesterday's non-natives, here's 4 great examples right here, and those are invasives. They displace native species. Yesterday's non-natives are today's natives. And that's what he said. Everything's always changing. Habitat's always changing. New seeds blow in, new varieties come in. And I'm not saying you don't aggressively try to remove bad stuff. The point is yesterday's non-natives are today's natives. And there's a big picture, real world view to take on all this, and always consider the hypocrisy. So when you're preaching to X out this, but you love some of this stuff, you're hypocritical. That's not a good thing. Who gets to pick and choose all this? Some organization? You as a landowner? You can do what you want as a landowner. The point is, there's a lot of non-natives to consider if you want to go after all of them. and I think you're going to make it your life's mission. You probably don't have enough time to have a job, a career, or a family, or probably even friends. So the point, consider the big picture when you're approaching invasives, non-natives, and I think you'll find a little bit more balanced approach. And I think that balance can apply to most things in life. Balance is good, and it's certainly good when addressing the problems of non-natives. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video all the way to the end. I really want to remind you about our food plot seed company, Pure Wildlife Blends. I even have clients that don't realize we have our company, but the food plot seed blends are flying off the shelves, and that's a great thing, and that always happens this time of year. I encourage you to check out everything. Again, purewildlifeblends.com, links in the description. But at the same time, we always carry inventory. So if you are the type that puts it off to the last minute, order it in July, we'll have it. But in the meantime, check out purewildlifeblends.com. We have a lot of different seed blends, pollinator blends, wildlife blends, switchgrass, everything that you need to plant great food plots and great wildlife plantings this season.